When people think about prisons, they rarely have a good image in mind. In fact, many of those who have never gone to or visited a prison wish to never have to. Films, TV shows, and books often portray prisons as scary and sometimes haunted places. These fictional prisons are usually extremely isolated, that even family members can't visit. Film and books show how prisons are some of the last places you ever want to be in. In reality, not all prisons are as bad. However, some prisons can be. In fact, there are some prisons that are considered to be the absolute worst prisons in the entire world, because of the poor living conditions that the inmates face. If you're curious about learning more, then keep on watching for 15 of the worst prisons in the world. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more neat facts to discover the world one click at a time. Number 1. La Sabaneta Prison. One of the worst prisons in the world is La Sabaneta Prison, or Maracaibo National Prison in Venezuela. This facility was designed to hold 700 prisoners. However, La Sabaneta Prison once held up to 3,700 inmates at once. This overcrowding was a severe problem that led to a lack of food, water, and medical care. This prison was also very understaffed, with a ratio of 1 guard for every 150 inmates. Gangs were popular in the prison, and fights between them often led to riots and even fires. In 2013, the government officially closed down the prison after a riot led to the deaths of 16 inmates. Number 2. Black Dolphin Prison. This correctional facility is one of the oldest in Russia, and its name comes from the Black Dolphin statue standing in front of the entrance. Black Dolphin Prison houses some of the worst criminals in Russia, including child molesters, terrorists, cannibals, and serial killers. All inmates have life sentences, and they all live in isolation cells with 3 sets of steel doors. Security is extremely strict here, and inmates are not allowed to just rest throughout the day. When new inmates are brought to the prison guards blindfold them to make sure that they do not see the layout of the prison. This prevents any of them from escaping. Number 3. Gitarama Central Prison. While a lot of prisons on this list suffer from overcrowding, the worst case by far might be in Gitarama Central Prison. This prison houses 7,000 inmates, when it was originally designed to only hold 400. The facility is so overcrowded that inmates often have to stand up all day. Overcrowding has also led to a lot of hygiene issues, as the facility is often dirty and suffocating. All kinds of diseases and infections spread fast. In fact, many inmates have had to amputate their toes, feet, or legs because of infections. Number 4. Camp 22. Camp 22 in North Korea is a political prison that is cut off from the rest of the world. This large facility is over 87 square miles, and it is completely cut off from the world, with its electric fences and armed guards. Around 50,000 inmates are imprisoned in Camp 22, and most of them have life sentences over criticizing the government. Very little food is given to the inmates, and most of them suffer through starvation. Aside from this, the prisoners also have to do a lot of manual labor using primitive tools. Number 5. Georgia, Gldani Prison. Most people expect violence and abuse in prisons to occur between inmates. However, this was not the case with Georgia Gldani Prison. What makes Tbilisi's prison as one of the worst prisons in the world is the abusive nature of its prison guards. In 2012, several videos of prison guards and superiors torturing and sexually abusing inmates were leaked. These videos proved the long-standing allegations of many inmates against these officials. Aside from these human rights violations, the inmates also suffered from poor medical care, unsanitary living conditions, and many more. Number 6. San Pedro Prison. Located in Lima, Peru, San Pedro Prison is one of the worst prisons in the world. With 11,500 inmates crammed into a facility meant for only 2,500, the prison guards are hardly able to keep things under control. According to prison officials, around 14,000 people pass through the prison each day too. In fact, most inmates there spend their days cockfighting, doing drugs, and playing with new purchases from the black market. Sometimes inmates will also have their so-called nurses and attorneys visit them. Number 7. Black Beach Prison. Black Beach Prison is in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea. This notorious prison was built in the 1940s, and it holds many political prisoners. In Black Beach Prison, inmates always have to deal with overcrowding, guard brutality, and torture. The guards do not care for the inmates and often deny them medical treatment. Little food is also served, which often leads to inmates suffering from malnutrition and chronic diseases. Number 8. Nairobi Prison. Located in Kenya, Nairobi Prison was established in 1911. Its original layout was meant to hold around 800 prisoners, with 3 prisoners per cell. However, each cell holds 12 inmates, as the facility holds more than 4,000 inmates. It is one of Kenya's most congested prisons. Aside from overcrowding, the prison also suffers from several cases of violence and abuse by guards and between inmates themselves. The inmates also frequently suffer from several diseases, with little medical care provided to treat them. Number 9. Butyrka Prison. Butyrskaya Prison, or simply Butyrka Prison, is one of the worst prisons in Russia and in the world. During the Soviet period, Butyrka Prison mostly held political prisoners. Today, most of its cells are filled with inmates awaiting trial. Butyrka Prison is yet another prison that suffers from severe overcrowding. In a cell meant to hold 10 people, around 100 prisoners are squeezed in. Because of this, diseases like tuberculosis and AIDS spread fast in this prison. Other resources such as food and medicine are unfortunately limited as well. Number 10. Diyarbakir Prison. Found in southeastern Turkey, the Diyarbakir Prison was built in the 1980s, and the conditions from then to now remain poor for inmates. In fact, Diyarbakir Prison has such poor living conditions that the Times ranked it as one of the 10 most notorious jails in the world. During the 19th century, many inmates were tortured and abused. Some inmates went on hunger strikes to protest the brutal treatment against them, and some were desperate enough to set themselves on fire. However, the Turkish government did nothing to help the inmates, and 34 prisoners died during the height of the Diyarbakir Prison's brutality. Number 11. El Rodeo Prison. Venezuela's most violent criminals can all be found in El Rodeo Prison. With over 50,000 prisoners, El Rodeo Prison is hardly under control. Many gangs were formed among inmates, and gang fights are also common every now and then. Cases of torture, rape, and murder happen frequently between inmates. There have also been cases of corrupt prison guards. They would often help the inmates with trafficking drugs and weapons into the prison. In a way, the prison was another hotspot for crimes to continue rather than cease. Number 12. Penal de Ciudad Barrios Prison. A common denominator for the worst prisons in the world seems to be understaffing. This is once again the case for Penal de Ciudad Barrios Prison. Located in El Salvador, Penal de Ciudad Barrios Prison is a facility with a guard-to-inmate ratio of 1 to 50. Because the inmates easily outnumber the prison guards, there is very little order within the prison's walls. Gangs make the rules for the Penal de Ciudad Barrios Prison. They have their own hierarchies in their respective gangs that they follow. Number 13. Mendoza Prison. Located in Argentina, Mendoza Prison is a facility built for 600 inmates. However, it also suffers from overcrowding, as it housed around 1,600 inmates. The overcrowding isn't the only thing that makes this one of the worst prisons in the world. Mendoza Prison is also known for the brutal torture and abuse that inmates receive from the hands of the prison guards. In fact, the prison guards are also known to take advantage of the prisoners' families as well. Conditions were so severe in Mendoza Prison that Amnesty International publicly condemned the facility in 2005. They expressed their concerns over how many of the inmates left the prison much worse than when they first entered it. Number 14. Rikers Island. Rikers Island, or Rikers Penitentiary, is a facility located on an island between Queens and the Bronx. It is New York City's main jail complex, as well as its most well-known jail. This facility admits over 100,000 inmates per year. Despite its large funding, Rikers Island continues to suffer from many issues. Several cases of abuse and neglect have been raised over the years, which have often been publicized by the press. The inmates themselves are known to be extremely violent toward guards and other prison staff. In 2015, there were over 9,000 reported assaults in Rikers Island. Of course, this number is only an estimate, as there are some cases that are never reported either. Number 15. Tadmor Military Prison. Found in the Syrian desert, 200 kilometers northeast of Damascus, the Tadmor Military Prison is known for its harsh conditions, as well as the torture and executions that most inmates had to face. Faraj Berakdar is one of the political prisoners who was held in Tadmor Military Prison. He later became a poet after his release, and he described the prison as a kingdom of madness and death. This testimony doesn't seem to be an exaggeration, considering that a massacre occurred within the prison walls. In the 1980s, the defense brigades of the Commando Forces slaughtered around 1,000 inmates. Many inmates were tortured and killed by guards before and after this incident. In May 2015, militants of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant blew up the prison and completely destroyed the facility. Fiction isn't always truthful to the realities we live in. In this case, however, it is very close. The conditions of some of the worst prisons in the world are much like the prisons we see in films, TV shows, and books. A lot of people believe this will encourage people to stay on the right path and avoid a life of crime. However, some also believe that these conditions are far too inhumane for even the worst of criminals. Now that you've learned what some of the worst prisons in the world are like, you can give your 2 cents too. What do you think of the worst prisons in the world?